I worry about the potential damage to a strong, vibrant tourist economy in Garrett County as a result of gas drilling. We've been making cheese in Garrett County now for just about 15 years, and we've seen years where we've grown faster than we should have, in the neighborhood of 30% year over year. So we're distributed fairly extensively east of the Mississippi, with a concentration around DC, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Philly, and then as you get further out, a little bit sparser. But we're actively working on that and have just this year started a couple of new major distribution relationships that will take us into the South and into the Midwest. So, there's something unique about goat cheese when it's made in close proximity to where the goats themselves are. Our cheeses have become somewhat famous for being not goaty goat cheeses, and that is only possible when the milk is transported as little distance as it is. Our 7 goat farms are all within a 20 to 30 mile radius of where we're sitting right now, and so that milk is brought to us very fresh with very little jostling in a major tractor trailer truck being transported across county or state lines. And so we get it, and the breakdown of the fats that cause that goatiness is barely happened at all, right? Is almost non-existent. And so we create really fresh tasting, really wonderful, rather unique goat cheeses that are all based on connection to a European tradition, but with a little bit of an American twist. So we are very conscious about being sustainable from an environmental perspective, from a social and community perspective, and from an economic perspective. We need to protect our environment, and we have gone to great lengths to ensure that the bioactive product of cheese making, Sweet Whey, is collected, refrigerated, and shared with other local farms as feed or as nutrient that could be spread on fields. So I'm not a global energy expert. I'm not a geologist. I'm not an environmental scientist, but I think I'm a relatively smart business person, and I've done a lot of reading, and I think the evidence shows that before we engage in this kind of activity, we should carefully consider the impacts on that community, on that collective economy. I would say finally, we make cheese. It's a highly regulated environment, and we are very carefully monitored to ensure that our cheese does not present a health risk to the public. And the idea that we would pursue something like fracking and gas drilling without similar care and similar thought to the protection of our environment, our water supply, is kind of silly. And so I am frightened that we will run into this with more thought about narrow economic interests than the future, and we'll find ourselves with a mess, and my business with a big problem. The tourists who come to Garrett County are coming from markets where they recognize our cheese, and they're beginning, I believe, to even come to Garrett County because we're here. And the idea that we could provide another reason to come is a really happy thing to me. Now, I think there are more business people that are understanding I need to create my own destination. I need to create another reason why people will come to Garrett County, and that's exciting. But it was a bit of a risk. At the time, accident was maybe on the verge of dying, and I feel like we were part of a movement to create a more energetic sense of community in accident. We're just 6 miles north of the lake, and a good portion of the people that go to the lake drive through here, and now, happily, a good portion of those stop. And that makes me happy, right? The whole entire southern-facing roof is filled with solar panels. I think, the motivation was all about becoming more sustainable, but there was a bit of motivation, because we're in Garrett County, to provide an example that was visible that solar can work here. Relative to gas drilling, I realize that we're all very motivated to become energy independent, and I understand, in 2016 more than ever, why that is so important. But fossil fuels, regardless of where you sit on the continuum, are essentially leaning backwards. They're 19th century technology, and the 20th century was sort of the heyday and created the geopolitical mess that we're now trying to deal with. So I'm not saying that fossil fuels need to go away now, but I am saying that we should lean forward, that we should do what we can to bridge into the energy economy of the future. And that was also something that I wanted to make a statement about with solar. And I would say that those that have been pioneers with wind should feel the same sort of satisfaction. They're leaning forward into a renewable energy economy that we have to get to.